Hello, everyone. Douglas here, and welcome to my classic Doctor Who review. And today I will be reviewing The Dalek Invasion of Earth. This story is the second story for the Daleks. Yes, those pesky Daleks are back, and they are on Earth. This story is the third story to be written by Terry Nason. During production of this story, there were changes coming on camera and behind the scenes as well. This story is the last for David Whittaker as script editor, and this story is the first story for a companion departure. That's right, a companion leaves in this story, and this story is the last for Carol Ann Ford as Susan Foreman. In episode 1, called World's End, we see a man with a helmet and he walks into the river and kills himself. We see the TARDIS lands, and inside the TARDIS, we see the First Doctor, played by William Hartnell, and we see the scanner is not clear. We see Susan, Ian, played by William Russell, and Barbara, played by Jacqueline Hill. We see the Doctor and his companions leave the TARDIS and explore. We see the whole bridge collapses, and they can't get back to the TARDIS. We find out from the Doctor that they are in London, but not in the 1960s. And the Doctor notices that everything is silent, and they don't hear a thing. We see the Doctor and Ian go to a warehouse, and when you hear the chains, that is eerie. We see Barbara notices a poster, and it says it is forbidden to dump bodies into the river. We see that someone is watching the Doctor and Ian. We see Ian notices Battersea Power Station and it lost 2 chimneys. And we find out the year is 2164. We see Barbara notices the dead body in the river and Susan disappears. And we see Barbara meets a man. We see the Doctor and Ian discover a dead body in a box with the same helmet. We see Barbara is following the guy, and we see the Doctor and Ian hear a ringing hum, and it's a flying saucer. The Doctor and Ian discover that Susan and Barbara are gone. We see Susan and Barbara are taken to a secret hideout. We are introduced to the people. David, played by Peter Fraser, Tyler, played by Bernard Kay, and Dortmund, played by Alan Jude. We see David is looking for the Doctor and Ian, and he notices 2 Robomen. We see the Doctor and Ian are surrounded by Robomen. We see Ian has a plan, and his plan is to dive into the water. We see Ian has a plan, and his plan is to dive in the water. But there is something, and it's a buoy. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let me start over. We see Ian has a plan, and his plan is to dive in the water. But there is something, and it's a Dalek. And that is an iconic cliffhanger. And that is the end of episode 1. In episode 2, called The Daleks, we see the Doctor and Ian seize the Dalek. We see the Doctor and Ian are taken to the Dalek saucer. And the Dalek line I like when it says, "We are the masters of Earth. We are the masters of Earth. We are the masters of Earth." We are introduced to Jenny, played by Ann Davis, who passed away this year, last month. We see the Doctor and Ian have arrived at the Dalek saucer, and we see more prisoners. We see one prisoner tries to escape but fails. And we see the Supreme Dalek for the first time. We find out from David that he is going to attack the saucer. We see the Doctor and Ian meet Jack Kurdick, played by Michael Goldie. We find out from Kurdick that the Daleks had a plague, like a germ bomb, and they wiped some of the humans. We find out that the Daleks have a mine, but they don't know what they are digging for. We find out from Dortmund that he made a bomb that will shatter the Dalek casing. We see the Daleks give the doctor a metal ball in a glass case, and the doctor uses the metal balls to escape, and it turns out it was a test. We find out from the Daleks that the doctor will become a Roboman. We see Tyler's attack group arrives, and the battle breaks out. We see the rebels are inside the saucer, and we see the doctor is knocked out, and he's going to become a Roboman. And that is the end of episode 2. In episode 3, called Day of Reckoning, we see Tyler knocks out the Roboman and rescues the doctor and the prisoners. We see Barbara sees Ian, and Ian gets back on the saucer. We see the rebels make their escape. We see Ian is hiding, and he hears what the Daleks are saying. We see the Dalek saucer takes off, and it's on its way to one of the mine shafts. We see Kudik, who is now a Roboman, and Ian saves Larry, played by Graham Rugby. We find out from Larry that his brother is at the mine shaft. We see David and Susan are hiding from a Dalek. We see Susan and David hear a noise, and it's Baker, played by Richard McNeef. And we see Susan is reunited with the Doctor. We see Baker gets caught by the Daleks, and he is killed. We see Barbara, Jenny, and Dortmund are on their way to the Transportation Museum, and they are trying to avoid Dalek patrols. And I love the music. When you hear the bungle drums, and that is intense. We find out that this is the first time Dalekanium is first used, and they did use it for the new series. We see Dortmund throws the bomb at the Daleks, and he is killed. We see Barbara and Jenny are hiding, and we see the Dalek investigating. We find out from Larry that the Daleks want the magnetic core of Earth. Ian and Larry find out the Daleks have landed. At the end of episode 3, we see the Robomen have a device, and it's a bomb. In episode 4, called The End of Tomorrow, we see the Doctor passes out, and David is going to defuse the bomb, and he succeeds. We see Ian and Larry notices slaves pulling a freight car. We see Ian and Larry meet Wells, played by Nicholas Smith, and they are caught by a Roboman. And Ian tells the Roboman to get new orders. And we see its helmet device lights up, and we see the Roboman is going to kill them, but Ian knocks him out. I like Barbara's line when she says, "If Dortmund had to throw away his life, we would all be dead. He knew exactly what he was doing. He sacrificed himself so that you and I would have a chance." We see Susan and David are in the sewers. We see that Susan discovers a bullet, and we find out from David that not all humans are allies. And in this story, you can tell all of the humans are desperate. We see Barbara is driving a truck. Barbara is not going to stop. She is going to drive through the Daleks, and that is an awesome scene. We see the Dalek saucer, and they destroy the truck. We find out that they are alligators in the sewers. We see Ian and Larry meet Aston, played by Patrick O'Connor. We see Susan descend onto a ladder, and it tilts back, and Susan is holding on, and we see an alligator, and Susan is rescued. We see a slither comes in, and Aston is killed. And we see Ian and Larry are face to face with a slither, and that is the end of episode 4. In episode 5, called The Rocking Alley, we see Ian and Larry jump in a basket, and the slither jumps and holds on to the basket, and it's holding on, and Ian fights it, and it drops to its death. We see 2 Robomen make their way down to the sewers, and we see Tyler and David fight the Robomen, and they are defeated. We see a storm is rolling in, and we see 2 women that Barbara and Jenny meet. We see the woman betrays them, and Barbara and Jenny get taken by the Daleks. We see Larry sees Phil, and he is turned into a Roboman. And we see Larry tries to get Phil to remember, but it fails. And we see Larry tells Ian to run, and both Larry and Phil are dead. One of the funniest scenes I like when we see David sneaks up to Susan with a fist and scares her, and we see Susan and David fall in love, and they kiss each other. I like the doctor's line when he says, "They dare, and we have got to dare to stop them." We see Ian notices Barbara is now a part of the workforce. We see that Barbara and Jenny are going to try and get to the Dalek control room. We find out from the Supreme Dalek that they are going to remove the core of the planet with a power system that will enable them to pilot the planet. And that sounds like William Hartnell's last story. Am I right? We see Ian is hiding in the device, and that is the end of episode 5. In episode 6, called Flashpoint, we see Ian manages to stop the capsule, and we see the Robomen are pulling it back up. We see Ian is leaving the capsule, and he is caught by a Dalek, and the rope breaks, and Ian goes through the mine shaft. We see Barbara and Jenny are at the Dalek control room, and we see Barbara and Jenny discover how the Daleks control the Robomen. We see Barbara starts mentioning historical generals so that she could outsmart the Supreme Dalek, and it fails. We see Ian goes through a round door, and he puts sticks in it to stop the capsule. We see the Doctor and Tyler see the Daleks leave their control room, and the Doctor is reunited with Barbara. We see Barbara orders all of the Robomen to attack the Daleks, and we see the Robomen and the slaves attack the Daleks, and we see Ian is reunited with the Doctor and Barbara. We see the capsule explode, and the Daleks are defeated. We see the Doctor is back at the TARDIS, and the debris is cleared. We see David wants Susan to stay here and marry him. We find out that Susan loves him. Inside the TARDIS, we see the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara, and the Doctor closes the doors, and we get this iconic speech from the Doctor. "During all the years I've been taking care of you, you in return have been taking care of me. One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine." And we see the Doctor says goodbye to Susan. We see Susan drops the TARDIS key, and we see Susan and David walk off. And that is a beautiful ending to this story. I will admit this, it is a classic. And I remember watching Susan's departure, and it was such an emotional goodbye to Susan. Big Finish did a sequel to this story called After the Daleks, if you want to know what happened to Susan. I will admit, this is a dark and grim story to watch, and this story is the first time the Doctor saves the Earth. In episode 3, William Hartnell had an injury and he was temporarily paralyzed. The cast is good, and Susan is really good in the story, and she is well developed. The script by Terry Nation is grim, and the direction by Richard Martin is great, and he really captured London very well. And I would give this story a 10 out of 10. So that is my review of the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And if there is another classic Doctor Who story you want me to review next, leave it in the comments. And I will see you next time for my Beatles movie reviews.